ourselves set up. Hi everyone, it's a real pleasure to be back here again, this time now with Ben from Nitin, which is one of the most exciting new tech-enabled fashion brands coming out of London. Ben, you can obviously explain your business far better than I can, so do you want to tell everybody a little bit about what you are and what you do?
Sure, so what we are doing at Nitin is that we have developed a way to control existing industrial knitting machines that are all around the world already to make thousands of completely unique items of knitwear for the same price as making thousands that are the same. And so Nitin is the technology layer that enables us to make this, I suppose, unique production on an industrial scale. And what we're doing now is launching the first fashion brand powered by that, which is called Unmade, which will be launching a week on Monday. And this is taking advantage of how do you actually use a system that can make one-offs, and is that giving over, all sorts of things, or is it parameterizing clothing, getting designers who are absolutely the best at creating fashion to use and engage with the technology in a new way? And because everything is made on demand, how can we involve customers before the product is made to make something that is actually personal? And so what we're trying to do is use the sort of power of the technology that we've made and the, I suppose, more modern ways of thinking about digital production to reclaim individuality and personality in clothing.
Let's talk a little bit more about the technology first before we dive in. I obviously want to hear about the brand that you're launching, but from a technology perspective, I mean, obviously the title of this session is The Ripple Effects of 3D Printing, which I think a lot of people in the room might assume that you are literally, he's sporting one of his own jumpers, 3D printing knitwear, which you're not. But can you explain what the technology is and what the link is with 3D printing from a concept perspective?
So I think 3D printing is one way of describing it, but I think a better way of describing it is additive manufacturing. And so when you make things, there's more than this, but broadly there are two ways. So there's like additive manufacturing, which is where you put things together and you make something. So like if you are knitting, you're taking a like a spool of wool and you're putting that together to turn it into something. If you're subtractive, it's like carving a block of wood. So most things are broadly made like that. So 3D printers build stuff up by layers, and the kind of key relationship, I suppose, with what we're doing with 3D printers is how you can think about, I suppose, products that are available as digital products first, and how they can be like downloaded and made anywhere. And because it's a digital file, it's available to be modified and changed. And so essentially what we're trying to do is digitize clothing to make something that no longer is like a static, single fixed product. It is a dynamic item that can be changed and shaped to the person, but you're not doing this in like an abstract, like, oh, I'm wearing LEDs and I've got some plastic on me. You're doing this with the best materials in the world, so the finest merino, the best cashmere, and you're making a product that's already in the shops all around the world.
I mean, let's bear in mind, obviously, knitting is a very old industry, and this sounds so straightforward and simple that it absolutely should have existed before, that you're essentially disrupting manufacturing. Why hasn't it been done before?
So I think it's largely timing. I think that if you look back at, so the kind of the industrial knitting machine has been around for a while, but it was only since the 80s that it was really digitized and automated. But you don't have until recently, the ability to press a button and guarantee that what you expect to come out will come out. So I think on the manufacturing side there's that. I think also the mindset that has come about through 3D printing and the new approaches to how, like a more on-demand view of manufacturing. And then thirdly, I think the internet and connectivity and the fact that you can start to create like groups of people wherever they are in the world that you can connect and share something and engage with either a media like photographs or videos, but what if that now starts to become clothing as well?
I think when I was thinking about this interview and researching a lot about you guys, what really felt like it resonated to me is that you're hitting a lot of very key trends within the fashion industry at the moment in terms of how it's moving forward and integrating increasingly with technology. And obviously there's that idea of the on-demand economy and of mass customization particularly. Can you share a little bit about what you mean? You say that consumers can come on board and they can personalize their clothing. Can they literally do anything? Kind of where is there a limit?
No, so we see it as, so just to be clear, so like Nitin is the technology and then Unmade is how we use that. So Unmade we've called it Unmade because it doesn't, by itself it is unmade, but then we can act with designers. So we've done some pieces with Christopher Rayburn, the British menswear and womenswear designer, and we act on him, so it's Christopher Rayburn Unmade, and then that leaves room for the customer to come in and complete it. So in a modern way of a more modern way of thinking, you can see clothing as like a series of parameters. So we control a few of them, Chris has controlled a few of them, and then we've left one that's open to the customer to change. So an example of that is that for his menswear, we worked together to create a sweater that is a map of Borneo. His whole collection was based on Borneo, and so you can navigate around that map to find your favorite location within the map. And there's little elements like his logo and things hidden within the map, and when you're happy with that, you press a button and your own unique version of a Christopher Rayburn is made just for you.
That sounds really nice. I mean, give you guys a little bit of reference. This is a team. Ben is one of 3 founders that's got incredible backing. They just got £2 million in funding this summer from some really, really big names in the industry. And as he said, he's about to launch his own brand next week.
A week on Monday.
Yeah. And a store, right? Tell us about the pop-up.
And so one of the key things, I suppose, is like, so the 3 of us, Hal, Kirsty and myself, only Kirsty is a sort of classically trained fashion designer, I suppose, and Hal and myself both did originally engineering, but met working with lots of digital artists and people like that around London, and the 3 of us met at the Royal College of Art, and so that's kind of how we can start to come from an almost outside perspective of fashion. So how you think about how clothes are made, so what if things move to on demand? Well, then you can do all sorts of things that you can't do with current production that make total sense. So like make things that are the colour that the customer wants rather than having the thing that's in stock. And so we've tried to do the same thing with retail. So what if you can come in, you can try on the size, you can make your own version, and rather than waiting 5 weeks for it to be manufactured in the Far East, what if it's made in the store and you can come back and collect it the next day? And so it
takes 24 hours for a product?
It depends on the queue. So each item doesn't take that long to make, but
digital queue.
Yeah, so when you buy it, we will tell you how long. So we generally say around, for a scarf it can be 2 to 3 days. For a jumper it can be 5 days, and obviously that grows or contracts based on demand.
And I presume the partnerships with the designers, obviously you've worked with Christopher Rayburn, you're rolling out more of those, and those are in the pop-up as well?
Absolutely. So for launch, we're also working, one of the key things that we've done, I suppose, is turn knitwear into a blank canvas rather than it being, just for fashion designers. What if we can take, graphic designers, what if we can take digital artists and start to give them the opportunity to make clothes, and how would they approach it in a different way to a fashion designer? And so we're working with graphic designers like Kate Moros and Malika Favre, and then also hand knitters, Paris Essex, the name of them, and how they would approach this kind of new, more digital way of doing it, and trying to, rather than constraining it to just our opinion of what we think is the right way to use this technology, how can we turn it into a platform that enables all sorts of people? And we have a certain group that we're launching within our shop in Covent Garden, but then for every new location, how can we bring a new mix of people and curate it really, and start to think of a new way of, like, I suppose, publishing clothing, and how the editorial element of that is as important as the product, because the difference with on-demand production is that you as the customer can be involved potentially, and so how can you be involved in the story of the clothing as well?
I've not heard that phrase before, publishing clothing. I think that's a very, very nice way of putting it.
I think it's not been possible.
I mean, obviously, the concept of what you're doing could be applied to other industries. Why do you think it works, particularly for fashion?
So we actually started off looking at other industries and think it makes the most sense in fashion. If you look at, it's very possible in furniture. You can take an industrial CNC machine, which is essentially a giant, a drill goes this way, a router goes sideways, so it can cut things out of sheets of material. So you can change that every time, and you could have the same exact thing in furniture, but how many people really want a completely bespoke table? Whereas actually fashion is completely about expressing your personality through the clothes you wear, even if it's subconscious. And so what we're trying to do is go back kind of to a time when, pre-industrial revolution, where actually you did have an involvement with the clothes that you made. Like you would go to a tailor and, older generations were much more aware of how their clothes worked for them. And I think this kind of ability to, personalize is one way, but make it for you makes total sense around the human body. And so fashion was an obvious route.
Who do you think your target customer is?
So I think at the minute we're sort of, because it is a more high-end product, so it's not, we use very good materials, so it's not, a merino jumper, 2-color costs £200, so it is a fashion audience, but as we scale that can go to a much more mass market sort of level, and that's our ambition as well. So we're using the current industrial production, but it's people that really, it's not just fashion people, it's also how we can take anyone who wants to be involved in the process of what they make. So I think it naturally sits with the more millennial age is one way of grouping it, but I think really it's relevant for anyone that wants to actually engage with the process of how their clothes are made.
I think, on that idea of customization, and as I was saying earlier, kind of hitting trends that are very important for fashion, one of the ones we haven't mentioned yet is sustainability. And I presume, if you're creating on demand for customers, that there isn't waste, right?
So, absolutely. So there's several major sustainability implications of what we're doing. It's hard to estimate or get the correct figure, but we think around 10% of all clothes that are ever made go straight to landfill. They go through all the different stages and try to get sold, and then not fit for purpose. So moving to a more on-demand approach,
which is huge. I mean, 10% is enormous.
It's enormous. So start to address that, and then the other thing is that if you involve people in the clothes that they make and wear, that's a much more hopefully has a product that has a longer duration to the customer, and the lifetime will be better. We make everything in a really high quality, so you don't necessarily need to buy as many things because you can buy the right things, which hopefully will have other knock-on implications. And then the real, I think, next step is, as we only manufacture in actually inside Somerset House, which is in central London, but as we scale the production centres, how you can start to have more local production in clothing, which on demand can unlock. And we're not making at volumes that, obviously making things in China where you're taking advantage of the wage prices has a massive benefit, but to price, but maybe other negative side effects. But if you're making something that is a more personal product, you're potentially more willing to pay for the cost of UK labour. So just reducing the transport miles and things like that.
It feels like there's a real move back to that made in Britain thing as well at the moment.
And I think made local. So we make in Britain now, but these machines are already in, France, America, Shanghai, Tokyo, anywhere in Europe. So why can't I get the best of New York Fashion Week, download it and have it made for me in my local shop in France, and I can pick that, or made locally near me, and then I can collect it from my local shop in France.
Nice. Before we finish, I wanted to chat a little bit about the future of fabric itself and just get your viewpoint. Obviously you're so embedded in this industry. Because of the basis of our title being 3D printing, what's your view actually on 3D printing and where we're kind of at in terms of, is that, will we get to the point where you can literally print out fabric in the same way?
So I think with 3D printing, it's one machine that comes from this idea of additive manufacturing, and I think that at the minute there's a lot of limitations on the material that can go into it, and so until that changes, why would you want something that's a kind of weird polymer when you could have something that's made from a natural fibre? But I think there are, particularly in sportswear and medical uses, like massive implications from 3D printing things, because you can take all these kind of more personal elements. But I think that there's a lot of hype around 3D printing at the minute, but I think there's a long way to go for it to be a mass market proposition. But I think that there are definitely applications that you can do things with a 3D printer you can't do with other machines. But an industrial knitting machine's already finished, already ready, and we can do amazing things with it that, you can make. Nike are already making shoes with these same machines. We make jumpers. There's a plethora of things from, homewares, dresses, sportswear, the fabric, where does it sit? Everywhere, so.
And the other side I'm really interested in is where this starts crossing with smart textiles. Are you interested in that kind of industry and where that might move?
Definitely. I think that we always have an eye on that kind of stuff. I think that one of the key things that we always look at is what does it actually mean to the customer. So taking advantage of how, or understanding what people really are going to use. So, the Google Project Jacquard is an amazing piece of technology, which if you haven't seen it, you can weave into so they're doing a partnership with Levi's, so you weave into your jeans a little trackpad so you can control your smartphone from the outside of your pocket. That is amazing, but I'm sure they'll come up with some good applications, but it's not an immediate thing yet. So all these things, I think when they start to become about sensing around your body, that starts to become something that's really interesting, but we're trying to make things that are appropriate.
I think where it's probably interesting with what they're doing and what you're doing is, again, it's kind of disrupting manufacturing, but in a way that's possible at scale, right?
Totally, exactly. And I think that's why I named them in particular, is that they've come up with an industrial production process that, it can be woven into every pair of Levi's. I think that there's still, like with all wearable technology, it's at such an early stage that trying to, how many iterations of mobile phone did it go through to get to something, even from the iPhone, that it was like usable by everyone. I think it's the same stage where we're waiting maybe for the perfect use case of it.
All right, well, please thank Ben very much for attending today and doing this. And do be sure to check out his brand Unmade, which launches a week on Monday. Thank you.